Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Fallon's Daily Toast. Per usual, we're at Somerville Community Access Television in the hot set, and joining me this fine afternoon is Alvaro Congosto. Alvaro Congosto is a producer, a director. He's just a man of film, and his latest short film is called The Suitor, and it's been released now to hundreds of festivals all around the world, and soon to be at a theater near you. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Fallon. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I watched the movie and was immediately captivated. Talk a little bit about what it is this short film, The Suitor, is about.
Well, The Suitor is a movie that basically happens the night that Orson Welles broadcasted The War of the Worlds. For those of you who are not familiar with this historical event, it happened on Halloween's Eve on 1938. And basically, he took H.G. Wells' book and made a dramatization of it. So he actually broadcasted that. And some people, or actually a fair amount of people, thought that was actually happening for real. For those of you who don't know what the book is about, basically some aliens land on New Jersey, and that's the adaptation of it. And some people thought that actually that was happening and that the world actually was ending. So there was like some sort of mass hysteria happening mostly on the East Coast, but also in other places across the country.
Wow! And at that point, there were more radios and homes than there were toilets. So everyone was tuning into what was going on.
Yeah, it's a time of period that basically radio was the main way, the main media, the main way of connecting audiences, much more than, there was no TV yet, and some newspapers were actually being concerned about radio taking over their popularity.
You know, what was it that you just, how did this come to be? I mean, in a world of now we live with technology where social media is, pretty much we're connected more so to Facebook and all these social media sites than we are to one another, and they connect as a tool, but they could also be a deterrent to change.
Yeah. The movie is a period piece, a movie that it's all set up in 1938, and when I was approaching the script, I didn't write the script, but I read it and I thought it was a beautiful thing to do, so I jumped right onto the production. But when I do period pieces, I like to ask myself, what is relevant about that now? Why to make a movie about 1938? What could that teach us about us on the world we live right now? And thinking about it, I realized that basically, it's not so much about, doesn't matter if it's radio, if it's Facebook. I mean, any media can be a two directions device where you can either be very connected or be very disconnected from the world. So that's kind of what I wanted to reflect on, and that's one of the reasons why I jumped into this project.
Yeah. And with the main characters, Abe and Irene, they are neighbors, and to give them a little synopsis, they are, live in the same apartment complex, and Abe is this really a solitary, lonely man. And so there's this woman, Irene, this voluptuous, beautiful redhead, and who's very, she's just so feminine and fiery, and he's always, observing her through the peephole. And it's this situation, this hoax, that brings them together because her radio goes out. So she has to knock on his door and say, my radio's out, can I come listen to your radio? And her family happens to live in New Jersey. You'll have to see the film. It's just beautifully done. The lighting, each shot is so very well orchestrated. You can see all the detail that went into it, and I'm just so grateful for that. It's truly very impressive, and I'm.
Oh, thank you.
You're
yeah.
welcome. It's great. So as far as that, these characters that come together. So out of these hoaxes, it brings people together.
Yes, and that's what I thought, that in a way, radio was sold at that time as a tool to connect people, because not everyone could own a radio, so it was kind of like a way well, I have a radio that's going to bring people to your house because they're going to be able to listen to it with you. And it was actually funny, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, the sound designer of the movie, and he was telling me that his father, when he used to listen to radio, he used to look at the radio, which I thought was a very funny thing, because you look at the TV because it's kind of feeding you images, but why would you look at it? People would sit down in their hall, in their living rooms, and just look at radio, what they could just get fed with sound. So in a way, it was a very connecting tool. But on the other hand, what ended up happening is as more and more people had their own radios, they would just listen to it by themselves as opposed to getting connected. So there you have again that kind of double side of technology and media in a way.
Yes. And more often than not, I am hearing so much these days. And in fact, I myself took a podcast class. I wanted to know what went into doing a podcast, and all the technology and the tools that you need. And now I've listened to a few podcasts, and so this at that time was like a podcast, a podcast from the 30s, which was one of the first podcast, essentially.
That's true. I never thought about it that way, but it's.
But so now more and more people are really enjoying not looking at visuals. I think we're all stimulated a lot, more now than ever. Videos and information, it's coming at us at such a degree that all information that we may have learned a week ago seems to just fade and become insignificant to new experiences.
That's very true.
So these moments that we have, this moment that Abe and Irene shared, as a filmmaker, as a director, you appreciate the little moments that occur. The moment where her hand dragged along that table, So there's something really special about the film to me, is because it brings you to those really delicate moments that we all tend to lose sight of because we're so tuned into the phone or tuned into the television or the computer. And so my hope, as I'm sure yours is to be keen and acknowledge those little moments that occur between 2 humans or 10 humans or a whole nation, because I feel like we're all sharing moments all the time.
No, that's very true. One of the things that I have, one of my mottos as a filmmaker, it's actually a quote that I borrowed from Annie Leibovitz, the photographer, and she said something like, with your camera, my goal or her goal was to reveal to the spectator the things that they don't see with their eyes. So I think part of the beauty of film or the power of film relies on trying to be able to focus on those little details, those little moments, those little encounters of people or of humans that you sometimes oversee and that sometimes you don't pay enough attention to. And I think with the power of the camera, you can really bring those back to life and really highlight them.
Yes, I agree with you. And I also feel there was a moment I watched the Kickstarter video, which was a great success. And I'm not sure if it was the sound designer or the producer that mentioned something about the monsters in the mind. And why was it that Abe was so lonely and cut himself off? And it's because everyone has monsters of the mind. It goes back deep into our ancestry. It comes from everything, a whole complex dynamic group of situations and environments that you've been throughout your life, and its defense mechanisms that you build. And so these monsters in the mind prevent you from having these direct connections. So Abe bought the radio because he needed a friend. He couldn't quite, and he also wanted to impress Irene.
Yes.
So, and he wanted to quiet the monsters in his mind.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah, I mean, it's a good metaphor, the whole broadcast for the story in that sense as well, because Orson Welles was quite smart putting all this stuff together, and I think he appealed to something that is very human, which is the fear. It's a very human emotion and a very strong emotion. So he hooked up people that way with the fear of something coming to us. But as you're mentioning, sometimes as in the movie, the monsters are not out there. The monsters are within you, and that fear that I think part of American history has been built on the fear of being attacked by external forces, which. It makes sense, considering that it's a country that hasn't had that many. Yeah, you had your own civil war, of course, but they haven't been attacked by external forces that much until, unfortunately, until 9/11 occurred. So I think Orson Welles was very smart playing with that attack happening from out forces. In that case, were coming from Mars. But
yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of these fears are not something that really we're born with. They're imposed upon us.
That's true.
And so how does one, after so many hundreds of years of these imposed fears, to break free of that is difficult, but a lot of people are trying. and we are
Yeah.
all trying, and through love.
Yeah, well, that's one of the messages of the film.
One of the
Yeah.
messages of the film is love.
Yeah.
When it comes together, is can really just make it all disappear, you know. And it's a powerful message.
That's very
And
true.
The Suitor is, yeah, definitely a film that you'll all want to see. So absolutely look into thesuitorfilm.com. What is it that you're up to now? What are you working on?
Well, I have like three feature film projects. I'm hoping I can jump onto a longer piece next. One of them is actually a longer version of The Suitor. So if you're out there, you like the movie, and you're looking to invest on something like that.
I do. I want to see more of Abe and Irene.
Yeah, so it's basically five little stories that happen within the same tenement building in New York City, of how five different people or families live that moment in history. So it's they all are interconnected, and they all have their own little twist and their own little spark. But basically, it's just five different stories around that night.
Wow.
Yes, that's one of them.
Beautiful. And how long have you been working on The Suitor? How long did you?
You mean the actual short film?
The actual short film.
Well, the actual short film took like about 2 years, the full process. We decided to, since it's a period piece, it's something that takes some investment in terms of recreating the set and building we had to build like a full set on a film studio, and the movie shot in Boston, actually, that's why we're here, but it happens in New York City, so we had to build a building that looked like 1938 tenement apartments, and find some locations, costumes. It just takes a whole thing. So we decided to raise a Kickstarter campaign to gather some funds, and that was 2014 when we did that. So you know, getting ready for the shooting the movie, post-producing it, getting the right sound designer, a great sound scorer, Mateo Rodo from Argentina, who studies at Berkeley, did the sound score, and you know, getting the music mixed, submitting to festivals, and now 2016 is finally the year when the movie is coming out, and it's been so far in 20 festivals, which is great. We've been in Mexico, Brazil, Italy, Spain, United States. I don't know if Colombia. So we are trying to get it out there as much as possible and get it seen, so people hopefully can enjoy the film. And
Yes, there's a theater up in northern New Hampshire. It's called the Colonial Theater, and I'm sure they'd love to have it. And so yeah, it's
well,
just,
we haven't been there yet.
yes, so Colonial Theater, I'll put that call in to the person who runs that, Steve Ignazio. He'd love to have that.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Music is so important. It's the language. It's the universal language.
Yeah, no, it's true. It was a difficult score to make, actually, in this case, because on one hand we were trying to accomplish two different goals. Like on one hand we were trying to make sure that we felt like we were in that era, so we're trying to use the sound and the instruments and the kind of tone of, you know, that kind of vibrant jazz that was happening back then. But also we were trying to make sure we could guide the audience through the emotions of the movie, so we could know when we were supposed to laugh, when we were supposed to be a little more thrilling, when the moments that were a little more pensive, the moments that were a little more intense, the moments that were more quiet, the moments that were more romantic. And so there is a lot of different changes in tone within the movie.
Yeah.
So the score was definitely a big help for that. Although it was a challenge to find the right person.
Yes. Wow. And the right person, though, you found.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in 12 minutes, a 12-minute movie, you really did pull upon all of those emotions: the pensive, the light comedic, you know, the thrill. It's just brilliant.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And so going into the future now, The Suitor, you've got 3 projects that you're working on. What is it that you want to, what's your, you know, do you work it in your mind, the 5-year plan? Where do you want to be? What do you want to see happen in the next 5 years?
Well, as I said, like my hope is to put together a longer piece, because as you said, this one has a lot of different emotions and stuff, but usually in short films it's very hard to convey a lot in such a short amount of time. So for me, film, it's more about human relationships, and to get really deep into how people connect with each other, it takes time. So I'm trying to put together a feature film. And you know, like within this industry, you never know what's going to be the project. you have to kind of open different doors and work on different directions. I like to take what I call the Steven Soderbergh approach, which is basically have a project that is a more solid industry base and also that requires more funds, and also on the side work on things that are smaller and more intimate and more independent. So while I'm doing this thing about the Suitor, I'm also working on another more independent feature film that I'm writing right now with a Catalan writer, and that one has to do with the story of a Peruvian woman that immigrated to Spain because she couldn't support her family, and the daughter basically 10 years later decides to find her mother and goes and travels to Spain to find her. So that's something a little smaller and a little more like less, not a period piece, it's more time present, and so that's another thing that I'm working on right now. But again, like you never know what's gonna come through or when, or yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'm so happy to have you here, and I don't want you to leave. So I'm like thinking of questions. Like I want to know, like, what was it? How old were you? Like 10, 11 years old, when you picked up your first camera and you started to film. What was it like when you first got into it?
It's funny. I think the first time I decided I wanted to make films was when I watched a movie by David Lynch called Lost Highway.
Yes.
And and I don't know. I was on a theater and it blew my mind. I didn't know what happened, but it made me feel so many emotions that I was not aware of that I could feel. So I don't know, that experience kind of triggered the whole idea. I think for me, film is a very powerful tool to connect emotionally with people. So that's mainly what I try to do. And after that, I started making my own films. Like I've never been like an artist or anything like that. I just really was into the framing and the work and being able to express through images and sound. So I started doing my own films when I was in undergrad, and then I came to America to study and more in depth. I was lucky enough to meet a professor here at Boston University, Jan Eagleson, who was a film director and who worked with Michael Caine and Kevin Bacon, and he really taught me the specifics or the details of how to make something real. And because I feel like eventually there are movies that are real, movies that are not real, and you can kind of tell if you are trained enough. So after that I decided to continue making my own movies. I also teach film here, as you know, at Boston University as well, and I'll be teaching at Wheaton College next semester, which I'm very excited about. So try to exercise the muscle and shoot and do as much as you can, because it's the only way to get better.
It is practice, practice, practice. How is it in Spain? Like the theaters there, you play a lot of American movies?
Yeah, the distribution deals that usually exhibition theaters have force them to screen, like I would say 4 out of 5 movies they screen are Americans, and then they have like one extra one that it's a European one. Or I'm talking about the main, the main chain, the main theaters.
The main chains, right? Not the small ones.
Yeah, no. Yeah. There's as usual, there's a strong European auteur kind of movie, like film movement in Europe. So there is the chance for that as well. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, Spain is now in a position where there is funding, state funding for movie making, but that funding it's limited, and it's usually only allocated to productions that they already know are going to be a success. Mm-hmm. So they don't take many risks. So like everything in the world is happening, there is no middle class anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's either the big filmmakers from Spain, or then a bunch of people at the bottom trying to fight and trying to make their own project with no money.
Getting very creative, though.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like the lack of resources usually sparks creativity. Yes. So I see many people doing very conventional stuff with a lot of money, and I see people who have no money doing very, very fresh and innovative work. So I don't see, in terms of that, I think America has a good balance between, yes, it's true, there is that whole Hollywood industry-based filmmaking, but the country is big enough to have a strong underground culture. And I think that's there. I've seen it in Austin, I've seen it in Boston, I've seen it in even within LA, there is an underground culture.
It is nice to have these smaller theaters, so I'd like to continue to see the streamlining of funds for the filmmakers that have that beautiful ideas, and because that's so very important. And I'd love to just continue to see the small theaters that are funded by the state to continue to be a home and a platform for the short films. All the Somerville residents out there that are watching Fallon's Daily Toast, check out the suitorfilm.com and tune into updates. I'm sure you'll be providing new updates as you move forward.
Yeah, there's a Facebook page with all the screenings as well that you can access from there. So hopefully, I feel like movies need to be watched on theaters. That's where they make a difference. So I'm hoping, and I'm sure it will come to Boston. If it's not this fall, it will be in the spring. But keep checking on Facebook, because it will be there, and you can see when it's gonna play next to your theater. And I would love you to stop by and watch it if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Fallon, for having me.
Yes, thank you. So thank you all for tuning in to Fallon's Daily Toast. And you can find everything on fallonsdailytoast.com. And keep an eye out for Alvaro Congosto. He's very talented, and we look forward to having you on again to talk about future shows.
Thank you. I'll be back when I have a new movie.
Yes, okay. Good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.